Hello and welcome, I am Thomas Porteous and you're watching NewsX World. Let's take a look at some of the top stories this hour. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu arrives at the scene of a deadly terror attack in northern Jerusalem, where two gunmen opened fire at Ramot Junction. 5 people are killed and at least 11 are injured before security forces shot the attackers dead. Israeli Defense Minister Israel Katz warned Hamas to release hostages and lay down arms or face the destruction of Gaza and its own annihilation. His message comes minutes after President Donald Trump issues what he calls a last warning to the group. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez announces 9 measures against Israel, including an arms embargo and a ban on ships carrying fuel for its army, saying they aim to stop the genocide in Gaza. Israeli Foreign Minister fires back, accusing Spain of antisemitism and declaring the Spanish Deputy Prime Minister persona non grata. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says he supports US tariffs on countries continuing trade with Russia, calling the idea right in an interview with ABC News. His comments come as Prime Minister Narendra Modi attends a summit in China alongside Vladimir Putin, while the Trump administration prepares new sanctions. South Korean Foreign Minister Cho Hyun travels to the United States to address the fallout from the mass arrest of Korean workers in Georgia. Seoul says a deal has been reached to free about 300 detainees from Hyundai LG battery plant, with plans to fly them home this week. Nepal sees massive Gen Z-led protests after the government bans unregistered social media platforms, with police using tear gas and rubber bullets to quell demonstrators. At least 9 people have died, dozens are injured, and the army is deployed as curfews expand amid growing anger over corruption and censorship. An Australian woman, Erin Patterson, is jailed for life with a 33-year minimum for murdering 3 relatives and trying to kill another with a toxic mushroom meal. The judge calls the 2023 poisonings the worst category of crime, noting her elaborate cover-up and failed attempts to poison her husband. Norwegians cast ballots on the final day of a parliamentary election dominated by rising living costs and international turmoil. Polls show the ruling Labour Party and its left-wing allies narrowly holding a majority, with 88 seats down from 100 in 2021. Now we start this hour in the Middle East, where Israeli Foreign Minister Gideon Saar has accused Spain of anti-Semitism following the announcement of measures by Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez aimed at stopping what he described as a, quote, genocide in Gaza. Spain had announced that it will step up pressure on Israel by banning Israel-bound ships and aircraft carrying weapons from entering Spanish ports or airspace. Additionally, Spain will boost aid to the Palestinian Authority and the United Nations Relief and Works Agency for Palestine refugees. Saar criticised the Spanish government, claiming it is using anti-Israel campaigns to distract from corruption scandals. Israel has also announced that Spain's Deputy Prime Minister and Labour Minister Yolanda Díaz will be barred from entering the country and will not have any official contact with Israel. We're now joined by Mati Zaweg, who is a geopolitical expert, and he joins us live from Israel right now. Mati, what are your thoughts on this situation between Madrid and Israel? Of course, the tensions are there. Is Gideon Saar acceptable to label the Spanish government anti-Semitic in its actions?
Well, it doesn't matter if the foreign minister is Gideon Saar or another foreign minister. Spain has been behaving in an horrendous way towards a natural ally like Israel, and not only because of Gaza. They have been blaming Israel for everything. This is you have to understand, this is a highly corrupted government which about 17 cases against only the prime minister, and I'm not talking about other people around. So it's so easy today, so trendy, so fashionable to blame everything with Israel. And if you have something to say about Gaza, say it. If you want to say that you have to ban sales of arms, do it, and we will cope with that. But there are so many politicians in Spain using Israel to cover their own wrong behaviors and corrupted government. That is really, really bad. This is really bad, and this is they have been doing this because they are all the time feeling that they are losing their own government.
Now, Mati, I'm going to use the Spanish government's words here. It's been framed as an attempt to, quote, stop the genocide in Gaza. What are your thoughts on the statements there and also Israel's response to them?
The response of Israel has been from a long time ago and also now. We have an horrendous situation. We have a war with Hamas. We have a lot of casualties from both sides, but people only talk about Palestinians usually. And we don't have a genocide. There is no genocide. Genocide have a very clear and established parameters to say that you are intentionally trying to wipe off the earth another people, like the Nazis did against the Jewish, or like they did in Darfur or in other places. We are not talking this. This is an horrendous situation that must be stopped in some way, but nobody is trying intentionally to kill civilians or to kill children or anything. They can continue to say that because they have their own agendas. They have a lot of Muslim voters to cover in the next elections. They have a lot of reasons to talk in this way, but Israel in some moment is going to stop these attacks in Gaza in order to win or to dismantle Hamas. And then things are going to go back to their own normal path. But with Spain, it's a special case. Spain
Okay.
and also Ireland, in some way, they are the two countries that they are mostly critical about everything in Israel, and also justifying the 7th of October, the biggest pogrom in the history of Israel. This is unacceptable from our point of view.
Yes, thank you, Mati. Do stay with us. We have another related development coming the audience's way. France has strongly condemned the deadly shooting attack in East Jerusalem that claimed 5 lives and injured several others. President Emmanuel Macron expressed his condolences to the victims and the Israeli people, emphasizing the need to end the cycle of violence. He stressed that only a political solution can restore peace and stability in the region. We are once again joined by Mati Zaweig. Mati, your thoughts on Emmanuel Macron, the French president, weighing in on this. Very quick to condemn this tragic attack that happened in Jerusalem today, which has left 5 people dead. Emmanuel Macron, of course, the first leader to say that France will recognize a Palestinian state at the UN. How do his words sound here to you?
Let's not mix things, please. Terror is terror is terror. We have been suffering, unfortunately, from terror attacks for decades. And this is another one, and not only because the actual situation in Gaza. We also talked in the past that Macron has his own agenda. He is very under pressure from the far right and from the far left. He's losing his government. He's all the time trying to cover this, blaming Israel and trying to attract Muslim voters in the next elections. We know that. This is very unfortunate. We can understand we are in the middle of a campaign, but we don't understand that he's going to give a prize not to the Palestinian Authority or to the Palestinian people. He's going to give a prize, if he recognizes in this moment a Palestinian state, to Hamas. That they say, because of us, now we are again, all the people, all the world is talking about us. and forgetting what Hamas did, and that Israel, even if it's a harsh one, is a counteroffensive and not an attack. We didn't attack Gaza. Gaza attacked us through Hamas. And even if you think we have to stop, this is a military thinking, this is a political thinking, and maybe some people is right and some people is not. But to give now a recognition, a full recognition of what Hamas did, is to give a price to the terror, and Israel is against this. And I can tell you that it's not only the actual government. If there was the opposition now, they would say exactly the same, because this is not the way of promoting peace, to give prize to Hamas.
Matti, world reactions have been flooding in, reeling from this attack that has happened in Jerusalem today, which has left 5 people dead. That of Germany and that of France being the 2 main statements that have come out. How is the country feeling after this attack?
Well, about the world reactions, we are used to everybody saying, oh, we are so sorry, this is terrible, and then 5 minutes after that, we are treating us like we are doing genocide in Gaza and things like that. So we are not talking about that. We are talking about the reactions in Israel. In Israel, we are always fighting against terrorism in all its forms. And I must say that for us, it's a terrible day. It's not 5 dead, it's already 6 dead, but it doesn't matter. It's a terrible tragedy. And there are 2 things that are very important to point here for our point of view. One is that the people that killed the attackers, the terrorists, one was a civilian, and the second one was a soldier from an ultra-Orthodox unit, which is very rare because in Israel, ultra-Orthodox almost don't go to service in the army. So for the Israelis, it's proof that they should also put their shoulders and be part of the effort and go to the army. And this is one thing. And from the other thing, I must tell you that this came after a relative period of calm in terrorist attacks inside Israel, and the Shabak, the internal security, it's avoiding and is aborting 400 attacks a year, more or less. There is no country in the world, a free democratic country, that is aborting 400 terrorist attacks a year. This one they couldn't abort, but they will continue in their effort to provide security to all citizens, Jewish and Arabs as well.
Matti Zaweg, thank you very much for joining us in that discussion. We will, of course, bring you all the updates on that developing situation happening in Jerusalem. However, we move over to the Gaza Strip, where people from Gaza City gathered at Al-Shifa Hospital to mourn their loved ones in an Israeli strike that hit tents inside the city. Among the dead were sisters Laylan Salem, who was 2, and Eman Salem, who was 5, who died in the strike. There were also reports that Rania Bakroun, a young girl, was killed in the same attack. Earlier, Israel launched an assault on the outskirts of Gaza City, with Israeli defense forces now moving in the western side of the Strip, where they had warned civilians over the weekend to evacuate high-rise buildings, alleging they were being used by Hamas. The United Nations has condemned attacks on civilians. Let's take a listen in to what the UN High Commissioner had to say.
I'm horrified by the open use of genocidal rhetoric and the disgraceful dehumanization of Palestinians by senior Israeli officials. The region is crying out for peace. Gaza is a graveyard. Israel remains in deep trauma after the horrific attacks by Hamas and other armed groups on 7 October and the continued holding of hostages. Further militarization, occupation, annexation, and oppression will only feed more violence, retribution, and terror.
Now, on the ground, a father was seen grieving over the death of a 1-year-old boy at Al-Shifa Hospital. Mourners have expressed their plight. Let's listen in to what they had to say.
معي 3 أطفال وزوجتي. طبعا زوجتي إصابة خطيرة ووالدتي إصابة خطيرة وعدد من الجيران استشهدوا تقريبا 5 شهداء غير عن الإصابات. يعني مخيم مكتظ بالنازحين السوريين.
يعني أطفال بموتوا، إيش سببهم هذول الأطفال؟ يعني طفل عمره السنة، إيش ذنبه يعني؟
مين ولا لهم في مقاومة ولا لهم في حاجة ولا لهم في أي حاجة، وضربت المسيرة مرقت خبطتهم وهبت النار فيهم وصر الصوت وزعق وطلعنا، وابني في الخيمة الثانية هناك الصواب، وأنا الصوابت في رجلي وفي صبيعي.
We now move over east, but stay in the Indo-Pacific, where China has announced sanctions against Japanese lawmaker Sieg Hai, a move that has been condemned by Tokyo as an unacceptable attempt to stifle free expression. Sieg Hai, known by his Chinese name Xi Ping, is a China-born Japanese citizen and reportedly an outspoken critic of the Chinese Communist Party. China's Foreign Ministry spokesperson Lin Juan has said that the sanctions serve as a strong punishment and warning, citing alleged false statements made by Sieg on issues including Taiwan, the Diaoyu Islands and Xinjiang, Tibet and Hong Kong. China claims these actions interfered in its internal affairs and harmed its sovereignty and territorial integrity. China will, from September the 8th, freeze any property owned by Sieg Hai in the country and bar Chinese organizations and individuals from conducting business or cooperation with him. He and his family will also be denied visas and entry into mainland China, Hong Kong and Macau. Let's listen in to what the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson had to say on the issue.
石平曾拥有中国国籍，他赴日并取得日本国籍后，大肆散布虚假信息，同日本反华势力沆瀣一气，大肆攻击抹黑中国，在台湾、钓鱼岛、历史、涉藏、涉疆、涉港等问题上发表极端消极言论。当选国会议员后，公然参拜靖国神社，严重违背中日4个政治文件精神和一个中国原则，严重干涉中国内政，严重损害中国主权和领土完整。针对石平上述恶劣行径，中方决定即日起对其采取反制措施。指出的是，石平为了一己私利，数典忘祖，出卖良知，勾连反华势力，挑衅滋事。中方的反制措施是对石平之流的强力惩戒和严厉警示，卖祖求荣，只会自食恶果。
We are now joined by Andrew K.P. Liang, who is a China strategist, to discuss this further. He joins us live from Hong Kong. Andrew, thank you very much for joining us. Andrew, China frequently comes under scrutiny for its censorship laws. This man, Sieg Hai, has been condemned and has had sanctions imposed upon him, some would say, for speaking out against the Chinese government. What's your analysis of this? Andrew, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I don't know what's happening.
I was wondering, what is your analysis of China imposing sanctions on this critic of the CCP and China and many of its policy issues, and the fact that China does face much criticism for its stance on censorship? And I just wanted to get your analysis on this situation.
Well, this particular politician has been a very severe critic of the Chinese Communist Party throughout his political career, which spans decades. And his campaigning on behalf of an anti-Beijing political party, because don't forget there is a change of the Japanese government. The current prime minister has resigned. And there will be a general election in the horizon, even though it's still a couple of years away, but he's now campaigning on behalf of this anti-Beijing party. And the same kind of rhetoric about the Diaoyu Islands, about what's happening in Xinjiang and so on, is using these old chestnuts to further his own political profile. Obviously, these are all red lines for China, plus the fact that he's rubbing salt into the wounds of the Japanese and Chinese kind of relations as a result of the Japanese invasion and also atrocities committed in China, for which Japan has never apologized, unlike what happened to Germany after the Second World War. The previous German Chancellor, Willy Brandt, knelt down in public short after the end of the war and apologized what Nazi Germany did during the war. But then Japan has never apologized at all to anyone, to any nation, not to China, not to the international community. But this particular individual is rubbing salt into the wounds by treading on China's red lines about the sovereignty over Taiwan, the democratic development in Hong Kong, and also Xinjiang, all the red button issues. And as I said, he's campaigning for this anti-Beijing political party in Japan in preparation for a general election. So this is no surprise. But of course, he is not worried about the sanctions because, according to him, he's got no assets in China.
Yes, Andrew, thank you very much for your insight on that topic. Do stay with us. We move over to South Asia next, where at least 14 people have died and several others have been injured following violent protests in Kathmandu against the government's decision to block popular social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp. Authorities say demonstrators clashed with police outside the parliament, where protesters denounced both corruption and the social media shutdown. The government imposed the ban last week, citing concerns over the misuse of social media for spreading fake news, hate speech and criminal activity. As tensions escalated, police deployed tear gas and rubber bullets to control the crowds. A curfew has now been imposed around the parliament area to restore order. We are now joined by Rajiv. Okay, these are ongoing situations in the Nepalese capital. 14 people have now died in this outcry of protests over the banning of multiple social media platforms, including WhatsApp, including Facebook. These are seriously heated clashes with 14 people being killed in Nepal. People very angry with the censorship laws over social media there. As we can see the visuals, buildings on fire and just general violent protests happening there. Do bear with us as we try to get a reporter to speak to you about it. Yes, as you can see there from the visuals, smashed windows, burning buildings, violent actions from people in the Nepalese capital there. Police have attempted to quash the protests with tear gas, attempting to displace crowds with rubber bullets, however to no avail. But we will of course bring you continued information on this ongoing situation as these protests continue. As you can see there from these visuals, police there in very, very heavy riot gear with crowds pushing against them, riot shields, helmets, protective gear, as you can see there, all over social media. Now obviously seen as serious censorship in the modern 21st century, blocking these apps of communication. We will, of course, bring you all the developments when we get them. Okay, all the protests, as you can see, the visuals are occurring now. near Nepal's parliament. The parliament that made that decision to ban those apps, that especially the younger generation, and of course all generations nowadays, are so crucial and centre to our modern lives. 14 people dead in Nepalese protests today in Kathmandu, as police fire rubber bullets and throw tear gas at Gen Z protesters. With curfews imposed, thousands and thousands of people are attending them outside the Nepalese parliament today. Thousands of youths, including students, many in their school or college uniforms, carrying the national flag and placards. They're being stopped by police, who have erected a barbed wire barricade around the parliament. They have been prevented from marching towards the building further, however, as demonstrations like this on this huge scale are not allowed under Nepalese law. There's a statement here from Maktaram Rijal, who is a spokesperson for the Kathmandu district office, and he told the Reuters news agency that we have imposed a curfew which will remain in force until 10 p.m. local time. We now move back over to the Indo-Pacific, and South Korea has said that it wants hundreds of its citizens who were arrested last week during a large US immigration raid at a car battery project now being due to be flown home soon to be allowed to re-enter the United States. Foreign Minister Cho Hyun is flying out to Washington in the evening and will be meeting US Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Cho also said that he would be asking for the US visa for Korean workers to be streamlined in the future. About 300 South Koreans were among the 475 arrested at the site of $4.3 billion of a project by the Hyundai Motor Factory and LG Energy Solutions to build batteries for electric cars. Let's listen in to what the South Korean Foreign Minister and South Korean ruling party lawmaker had to say.
네, 그런 문제점을 저희들이 인식하고 있었고 이번 일을 계기로 제가 방미해서 협상의 시작을 하려고 합니다. 정확한 미국 출발 일정은 정해지지 않았습니다. 그건 단순히 테크니컬한 거하고 행정적인 절차가 남아있기 때문에 그렇습니다.
We're now joined by Andrew K.P. Leung. He is a China strategist and he joins us live from Hong Kong once again. Andrew, this has been quite the saga. 300 South Koreans detained in the United States. How have you analysed how Washington and Seoul have coordinated over this? Of course, Washington's original response to this, the largest action by ICE in history at a single site. What are your thoughts on how this has unfurled?
Well, this is Americans' own law enforcement against illegal immigrants just hiding in factories inside the United States. And I think that this is an internal law enforcement matter. I don't think it's going to affect the United States relationship with China, which is still good to be on the upside. I don't think, fortunately, the South Koreans have protested, but also just highlighting the fact that South Korean legitimate interests should be respected, but it's not challenging this law enforcement action. I think at the end of the day, a lot of the factories, foreign companies, they're employing cheap illegal labor, and that could be one of them.
Yes, Andrew K.P. Leung, thank you very much for joining us here on the programme. Pleasure to have you on, as always. We now finish off this hour with news from the sporting world, where Carlos Alcaraz has captured his second US Open crown, defeating Italy's Yannick Sinner in New York. This victory also lifted him back to the world #1 ranking, ending Sinner's 27-match winning streak at hard-court Grand Slams. Meanwhile, the match was also marked by the high-profile presence of US President Donald Trump, which caused a 30-minute delay to the start. Enhanced security led to long queues and thousands of empty seats at Arthur Ashe Stadium. The results adds a 6th Grand Slam title to Alcaraz's name, making his place among the sports elite. Here's what Carlos Alcaraz had to say after winning.
As I said, for me, it's great. When you achieve the goals you set up yourself at the beginning of the year, it feels amazing. So since I got the chance to recover the number one, it was one of the first goals that I had in the during the seasons. Just to try to recover the number one as soon as possible, or end the year as a number one. So it's for me achieve that once again. It is, as I said, it is a dream. Doing the same day as getting another Grand Slams feels even better. This everything I'm working for, and I'm really happy to be able to live these experiences.
Speaking later, Trump said he loved attending the final, praising both players' talent and noting that he was surprised by what he called great fans. Let's take a listen in to what Trump had to say after the final.
Well, I loved it. First of all, the two players have unbelievable talent. It just seemed that they hit the ball harder than I've ever seen before. Incredible talent. And I enjoyed it. And I used to go all the time, but, lately it's a little bit more difficult to go. I really enjoyed it. They were really nice. The fans were really nice. I didn't know what to expect. Usually you would say that would be a somewhat progressive, as they say nowadays, crowd. Sometimes some people would call it liberal, but we'll use the word they like to use, progressive. But they were great. The fans were great.
Well, that is all that we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more news updates from around the world.